Ready for another edition of the Petty Podcast. This is your host, Stephen Petty. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. I spent about 10 years coaching youth soccer, and I've been paying attention to the World Cup activities, and I thought it'd be fun to talk a little bit about the science behind the players. So this is what they all play for, the World Cup. Most of us can only dream about that. But I thought it would be interesting to know what's the history of soccer and the ball? How fast are the players, all the way from youth to our just key prime athletes? How fast can they kick the ball? And what are the reaction times for a free kick, both in terms of the player kicking the ball and the goalie? And how far can a ball be curved? I was always curious about that. So some fun facts. In terms of the ball, the ancient cultures, and there were a lot of them, that are associated with the soccer ball, or as is known in the rest of the world, the football ball. The Chinese, Egyptians, Mayans, Aztecs, and Greeks are all associated with early games called soccer or football. The early balls were everything from stitch-up cloth to animals, and particularly in Central and South America, human skulls. I kind of wonder how long the human skull would last in a game, but they must have had a few of them. In terms of the first modern soccer ball, not a surprise, it was developed in 1855 by Charles Goodyear. Goodyear's famous for inventing rubber, and so he's the first one really that invented a soccer ball that had a rubber synthetic basis as we know it. The first white soccer ball was in 1951, and it was white so that spectators could see the ball in the at night after the advent of floodlights. And it had been in use for quite some time, although there's some evidence that white soccer balls were used even further back. The leather was simply whitewashed, and that created the white ball. There were also some balls that were colored orange in the 50s, and that helped see them in the snow. So obviously we had some players playing in the snow. That was a little different. The classic white and black soccer ball, I didn't appreciate this, was invented in 1970 for the World Cup held in Mexico. And it was called the Telstar ball, and it was made by Adidas. These two colors, interestingly enough, were only used because at that time most TVs were black and white, so they wouldn't have been able to see color anyway. And up to about 2006, the ball had 12 pentagons and 20 hexagons. There are less panels used in today's balls, and today's balls are also colored. But that's kind of the history, if you will, behind our soccer ball as we know it. There are really 5 sizes of soccer balls, and those that have coached or played know this, but many may not. The first 2 are really practice-type balls, and you don't see those too much other than people using them in practice. The sizes 3 and 4 are mainly for youth soccer, and size 5 is used for all players over age 12. So if you're age 13 or higher, male or female, in a league that's rated for players age 12 or over age 12, you're going to be using a size 5 ball. The size 5 ball weighs 14 to 16 ounces, or those in the metric world, 420 to 450 grams, and it has to be inflated to 11.5 pounds per square inch. Now, in terms of running speeds, I was interested in it. It's not trivial to find out how fast players are. The fastest players in the history of measuring players, the fastest player is a fellow by the name of Alphonso Davis as a professional, ran 22.7 miles an hour. Some of the folks that you may have heard of, more common names, Cristiano Ronaldo, 21.1, and some of the others down to 20.7. So The top line professional men can run on the order of 20 to 23 miles an hour. Pretty fast. The female professionals, the peak speeds ever measured were around 17 miles an hour over a 15-meter sprint. And in general, elite female athletes can run anywhere from 14 to 16 miles an hour. The other interesting thing I was interested in was how fast can people kick balls? And I've known there's differences when I coach, because some kids I'd stand in front of and they'd about take my head off, and some kids not so much. For a typical youth, they're kicking the ball between 30 and 40 miles an hour. As you move up in terms of youth players, from U15 to U19, the speeds increase depending on the starters. You can see kick a little faster than the reserves, anywhere from 40, almost 50 miles an hour to over 66 miles an hour. Non-professional adults, those like myself and others that play rec soccer, we kick the ball around 50 to 60 miles an hour. So we're not even as good as some of these high schoolers. In terms of kicking speeds for collegiate players, the average speed measured is around 59 for a male and 49 for a female. The fastest recorded soccer kick is by a guy named Ronnie Heberson, who kicked the ball, recorded 131 miles an hour, by far higher than almost any other player measured. One has to wonder whether that was accurate or not, but that's been reported multiple places. The top professionals, though, kick the soccer ball somewhere between 90 and 120 miles an hour. That is for men. So I was interested in what chance does a goalie have to stop a penalty kick. The penalty kick line is 12 yards or 36 feet from the goal line. The goal is 24 feet wide. Half of that would be 12 feet. If you use Pythagorean theorem, remember geometry, the distance to the corner of the goal is about 38 feet. So I said, well, let's look at ball kicking speeds between 40 and 130 miles an hour, and the goalie foot speed between 15 and 20 miles an hour. What does that mean in terms of reaction time? This is a little busy, but looking at all those parameters, in general, the penalty shooter kicking to the corner of the net, the ball is going to reach that corner in about a third of a second. You can see it's plus or minus that depending on how fast they can kick the ball. The goalie, on the other hand, his reaction time to get to the corner, if he's standing in the middle and he's got to get to one corner or the other, and assuming he guesses right, his reaction time is just under a half a second. So basically, if the player hits the ball to the corner correctly, even if the goalie guesses right, he's not going to get there. So the only way he gets there is to guess early, and he has a chance. So thought it'd be interesting for you to know that for professionals, the time to the corner of the goal is a third of a second. The goalie at best can react in a half a second. The other question that I found interesting is I've always been amazed, and I've tried to do it, but I'm not very good at it. But a lot of these players can kick a soccer ball in such a way by hitting it on the side that it spins and curves one direction or the other. It's really quite interesting to watch. And the physics behind that, there's been a number of studies looking at curving the ball. The bottom line is that the best you can do, if you did everything right, is that you could curve the ball about 4 meters or 13 feet from 30 meters away or about 100 feet away. So you can curve the ball 13 feet over 100 feet. That's pretty impressive. So that's why you see those kicks where it goes up and over the wall or it goes around the wall and it moves so far. You can actually move that ball quite a bit. Again, this was more of a fun podcast. It was an area that I was interested in since I coached soccer for a long time, at least at the youth level. And I hope you found it interesting as well. We hope you'll join us again. Have a great day, and thanks for watching our podcast.